when I look at the word salt, and from the Hebrew understanding, the note that was made there was so funny. And this is why I had to really look at it. This is what it suggested. It suggested to eat. You're the salt of the world. Now, of course, we understand how salt is related to eating. It's very clear how salt is related to eating. Some people have too much salt in their consume too much salt, but salt was related to eating. And when you look the statement up, when you look at the word milak, you'll find it talks about eating the salt. So I was like, okay, how do we reconcile the reality of eating salt? And then it referenced all the way back to, because remember I told you everything Yeshua was talking about in that chapter 5 goes all the way back to Torah. Why would he be in the conversation? Then all of a sudden make a similes, blessed are you, blessed you and persecute, they persecute the prophet before you. Then all of a sudden, it's almost like he goes into a different conversation and makes a random statement. You're the salt of the earth. You are the light for the world. It's like, does this even connected? Does that have anything to do? Yes, it does, because everything he's talking about in Matthew chapter 5 goes back to his original, the Father's original things that he said. So when he made this statement to these Hebrew people, they would have understood what he was saying when he said, you are salt, the salt for the land, and you are the light for the world. They would have understood clearly what he was saying. You get into verse number 17, this is when he goes into explaining that he did not come to undo what his father had already established through Torah and the prophets. All right? And understand when I'm using that terminology Torah, I'm not talking about legalism. I'm not talking about what do we call it? Ceremonial things. Okay? We understand that when Yeshua comes along as the high priest, as the order of Melchizedek, no beginning of days, right? No end of days. He just was, he came, okay? Abraham paid tithe to him, that kind of stuff. We understand how that came. Yeshua did not even come from the tribe of Levi, which is where the priesthood had been originally ordained. Yeshua came from the tribe of Judah, or the tribe of Judah. Okay? So when he did, he came outside of that order structure that had already been set, which actually brought it and indicated an end to that priesthood, which was only set in place as a temporary measure, a temporary means until Yeshua came to be the high priest forever. Now there is no need for there to be a Levitical priesthood and ceremonial washings and ceremonial rituals and blood sacrifices and all this kind of thing, because Yeshua himself is our high priest. Okay, so those things have been done away with. However, the responsibility that we have to the moral code, the moral obedience to what the Father has instructed for us to do and how we ought to live, that is still intact 100%. That's not changed. So, salt. When you go back, let's go to Leviticus chapter number 2. And when we go into Leviticus chapter number 2, it was so interesting what we find there. Because the word salt, and when we looked at salt, it went all the way back to a covenant of salt. Okay? There were different type of covenants that were utilized in scripture. And one of those covenants was the salt covenant. Okay? So we're going to look at this. Look at verse number 13 in Leviticus chapter 2. Leviticus chapter 2. Well, let's look at number 12. As an offering of first fruits, you may bring these to the Most High, but they are not to be brought upon the altar to make a fragrant aroma. Look at verse 13. You are to season every grain offering of yours with salt. Do not omit from your grain offering the salt of the covenant with your Elohim, but offer salt with all of your offerings. I want you to think about it just for a moment. That with all of the offerings that were brought into the temple, all the offerings that were brought in by the people, they were to be combined, to be coupled with salt, the grain offerings. Just don't omit salt. It's a covenant that was supposed to be established. And when you think about this, these were things that were specifically set aside, things that were offered to the Father by the people, and his instructions to them was, don't bring these offerings. Let me read that again. Verse number 14. 13. You are to season every grain offering of yours with salt. Do not omit from your grain offerings the salt of the covenant with your Elohim, but offer salt with all your offerings. So every offering was to be presented in the temple. These offerings were to be, grain offerings were to be presented with salt. Kind of made me think of Romans chapter 12. Present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, that's important, acceptable unto him, which is your reasonable service. Check this out. You find salt, I think it was Ezekiel that made a reference to, he's talking about Israel, and he makes a reference, and he says, it's in the part where he talks about, when I saw you polluting your own blood, I said to you, live. But just above that, he said to them, he said that basically you were like a baby who had been born, who had not been salted. And the reference that was made there of salting a baby is a practice, you can look it up. The practice of salting that baby was for the purpose of purification, for the purpose of keeping contaminants away from the child, keeping the child from being subjected to certain bacteria and certain disease. So salt was used as a method of purification. You can even use the terminology sanctification if you want to. And so he said the reason why Israel went into these sins and became contaminated by these sins because they were not salted. Because the salt would have preserved and kept them from the sin and the behavior and stuff that they had allowed themselves to get into. So salt was a protective measure. And it almost made a reference to, and I actually wrote a book down that says, I am salty. Now, understand this. From a worldly perspective, when people use the term salty, they use it in a derogatory manner, saying that this person is angry, or this person is upset, or this person is offended. But to be salted actually indicated, when you study that, it actually meant to be purified. What does the scripture says? How can a young man keep his way pure, right? And how does he do it? He does it by observing the commands that the Father has given to us, by keeping himself unspotted, clean from the world. With a person we know says the same thing all the time. Pastor Jeremy says it all the time, that we have to keep our hands clean and our hearts pure. So when he indicated salt had everything to do with purification and holiness. And understand, how do we come into the kingdom? We come into the kingdom by what? Birth. Now check this out. This is how I was saying how this kind of family thing kind of came into it. Because I was inquiring of the Father, said, man, I'm reading the scriptures. I don't remember now. I'm not saying, I have never read in the scriptures where it talks about him being a mother to the motherless, but it does talk about him being a father to the fatherless, right? Because he is a him. Amen. Her. He is a him. Okay? And I said, well, you know, Father, you created a family structure. You brought us into your kingdom, into your body, and you told us to refer to each other as Ak and Akoti, brother and sister. And so when we make that reference to each other, you created a family structure that you became the father of. Right? But if there's a family structure, it has to be a father and it has to be a mother. And I said, well, Father, okay, well, how does the mother factor in? We know the father gives the identity, the father gives the vision, the father gives direction, but how does the mother come in? Because there are people who have been born and they don't have, in the natural sense, you know, they have a father that may not have an active father, may not have an active mother, but don't ever say you don't have a father, don't have a mother. You have a father and a mother, they may just not be active. Okay? But there are people who've not had the experience of having both father and mother, which is essential and necessary. I said, so Father, how do you do it? How is the, as far as the spiritual is concerned, how is the mother part associated? Now, I'm gonna tell you exactly what he said. What came to me when I said that, when I asked that question. He said, have I not referred to my people, my body? Have I not referred to my body as my bride? Feminine term. Forever will be. Amen. You cannot associate bride with masculinity. Let's not go together. So he used the term bride. And how do we come into the body? How do we come into the kingdom? What does he say to Nicodemus? Except the man is born of water and of the spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom. So how do we come into? We are born. So how do we come into the body? We come into the body by birth. So guess what? That's how the mothering aspect, because just like the father gives identity and the father gives vision and the father gives structure, that's what he did as the father. Then he says, now, what are you born into? You're born into a family, and then you come into my body, which is my bride, which gives you the nurturing. And I was like, okay, Father, that's how you do it, right? So we are born, and then again, the practice, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think for a long time, even midwives back in the day would salt babies after they were born, as a purpose of, again, keeping away bacteria, germ, disease, and a sense of purification. Right? Now, turn to Mark chapter 9. This was so interesting. Mark chapter 9, and look at verse 49. Mark chapter 9. Verse number 49. Indeed, everyone is going to be salted with fire. Now, fire also indicates purification. Fire also indicates cleansing. Just everyone is going to be salted with fire. Salt is excellent, but if it loses its saltiness, how will you season it? Watch this. Look at this. Have you ever read this? So have salt in yourselves. Have salt in yourselves. What does he explain it is? That is, be at peace with each other. So he says to us in Matthew 5, you are the salt you are salt for the land. What does salt do? Salt purifies, cleanses, salt preserves, right? Keeps bacteria and keeps germ away. Okay, certainly. So he says to us, you are salt. But check this out. When I looked at melach, it meant, or the statement was made, eat the salt. And I was like, okay, what is that? What does that do? Because we went to Leviticus chapter 2, and we see verse 13, he says, every grain offering, you know, offer it with salt. Do not neglect to put the salt with the offering. Right? So those of us who are living sacrifices, are we not an offering that's acceptable unto him? That he says, have salt in you. Have salt. That is, be at peace with each other. How do people know we belong to him? The fact that we love each other. If we love each other, that means that there's peace of, that things should be peaceable between us. So check this out. Numbers chapter 18 was what made this make so much sense. Numbers chapter 18, look at verse number 19. Look what we're supposed to have. Watch this. My friends from Atlanta, he said Numbers. Numbers chapter 18, look at verse number 19. Well, again, you're going to see that combination of fire and salt. Now, when he says that everyone is going to be salted with fire, what we just read in Mark, that has to do with purification. There's going to come a point in time where destruction is going to come and the judgment is going to come. So that salt also had to do with judgment. Okay. But Numbers chapter 18, verse number 19. 17. But the firstborn of an ox, sheep, or goat, you are not to redeem. They are holy. You are to splash their blood against the altar and make their fat go up in smoke as an offering made by fire, as a fragrant aroma for the Most High. Their meat will be yours. And so, okay. So who is he talking to? He's talking to Aharon, talking to Aaron. And he says, their meat is going to be yours, that is weighed, and the right thigh. They will be yours. Right? Watch this. All the contributions of holy things which the people offer to the Most High, I have given to you. Your sons and your daughters with you. This is a perpetual law, an eternal covenant of salt before the Most High for you and your descendants with you. Because you explained to Aaron, you guys won't have an inheritance among the people. You will live of, you will exist of what is offered. That's part of what the offering was when the offering was brought to them. Matter of fact, this is the reality of even talking about, something first fruit. It was given to them, and he says, that first thing that is given, that's yours. It's offered to me, but it's yours. And perpetually, I want you as the priest to live of what comes a portion of the offering. Remember the showbread, the bread that was on the table in the temple, that came a point in time where they were supposed to eat the bread in the presence. And one of the common practices of eating bread was a sprinkle of salt. Now understand, we're not talking about Morton. Morton didn't exist at that particular point in time. Salt they were talking about had all the nutrients and all that stuff like that in it. So when he said eat, that they were to eat it, and they would even eat the bread of the presence, right? They would eat the showbread. Okay, so he says, you are to eat this offering that has been offered with salt. Eat salt. Now think about the priesthood. The priesthood was an ordained group that had been given specific instructions that had to do those things according to those specific instructions, that they may glorify the Father before the people. That when the people looked upon the high priest, the people looked upon the priest, the family of the priesthood, the people looked upon them, they were to see the reflection of the glory of the Most High, reflected in the way and in the manner in which they carried out their obedience to the Father. Okay? Those who were in the priesthood leadership had the responsibility to make sure that they carried out those instructions specifically as the Father had given to them, because they were to glorify the Father before them. So, in the similitude of how the priesthood had to walk in their obedience to the instructions that the Father had given, in the same similitude, when He says to us, "You are salt for the land," He's speaking specifically, expressly about our obedience to the Father's instructions. Because it is our obedience to the Father's instructions that glorifies Him. Not us coming up with our own set of instructions. Not us coming up with our own set of things. Not us coming up with our own idea, our own mind, our own thought. It is about us walking in obedience. To eat the salt was an instruction that had been given in obedience to the priesthood. Right? What does Peter say about it? The people of the Most High. You are a what? You are a holy priesthood. You are a holy nation. You are a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of Him who have brought you out of darkness and into His light. So the reality is that He says you have been salted. In other words, you have been given holiness, purity, sanctification, which comes through our obedience to His. So do you understand that obedience to His Torah is not restriction and bondage and legalism? That's not what He's discussing. He's talking about obedience, and my obedience of eating the salt, my obedience of allowing myself to be salted, to be purified, to be sanctified, to live according to what the Father has lined out as holiness, okay, causes me to represent Him, and my demonstration and obedience to His word makes me salt for the land. Salt for the land, that's salt that's associated with an acceptable sacrifice. The sacrifice was not acceptable if the salt was not included with it. See, all the things have a purpose. So He said, you're going to be salt for the land. You're going to walk in obedience to me, and you're going to eat of what I have given. What is that? Bread, right? Bread. Funny thing, melach, bread, melach, salt, and bread, right, have some of the same alphabet, right? Salt, melach, bread, wachim, or in some sense, challah, same shit, lamed. It's in there, right? Yeshua, born in Beth, house, Lachem, bread, house of bread. Yeshua, born in Bethlehem. It's the reason why He was born in Bethlehem. It's the reason why He was born in the house of bread. And then He comes from the house of bread saying, I am the bread of life. Okay? So when we eat of what is an acceptable sacrifice, what Yeshua tells disciples at the table, take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. What was He breaking at the time? Bread. Wachim. Salted. Melach. So, in the same similitude that an acceptable sacrifice was to be eaten by the priest, is what we offer to the Father as representatives of His being salt for the earth, is what we offer to Him edible. That's an important question. Is it acceptable? Okay. So we are salt for the land, representatives of His purification, of His holiness, obedience to His word. We are also light. The Hebrew word is the word or. O-H-R. Or. Oh, and by the way, salt is a covenant sign. It's an unbreakable covenant. 2 Chronicles chapter 13, verse number 5. Look at that. We get an opportunity. 2 Chronicles 13, verse number 5. 2 Chronicles chapter 13. Chapter 13, verse number 5. Don't you know that the Most High, the Elohim of Israel, gave rulership over Israel to David forever, to him and his descendants by a covenant of salt, which is unbreakable. So this covenant is an unbreakable covenant that's established by him in obedience to his words. All right, now we are like. Hebrew word is the word or. Or. Now there is a sense of mysticism and a practice called Kabbalah that takes this to a very wicked place, very wicked, evil place. We are not practices of Kabbalah. Kabbalah is witchcraft. Okay? It is witchcraft. It is mysticism. It is a ancient Eastern mystical practice. Okay? We are not Kabbalists. Okay? But just because people take something to try to pervert it does not mean that we reject it altogether. We just find out the truth of it. And we operate and function within the truth of it. Amen. Okay, so the Hebrew word or, O-R-H, okay, the Hebrew Aleph Vav Resh, or, does not mean what we perceive the term like to mean. I want you to flip over to Genesis chapter 1 with me. And I want you to begin to see what this is. Okay? Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, Bereshit is what that's called in Hebrew. Genesis chapter 1. Look at verse number 1. In the beginning, God, in the sense of him being Elohim, the created one, the creator, created the heavens and the earth. Verse 2 says the earth was unformed and void. Darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of the Most High hovered over the surface of the water. Then he said, let there be light, and there was light. Since God saw that the light was good, and he divided the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So there was evening, and there was morning one day. So this is the breakdown of how the Father did this day by day. Okay? Going through a process, a pattern of 7 days. Okay? That he had established. Now I want you to go down to verse number 14. Yah said, let there be lights in the dome of the sky to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years, and let them be for lights in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth. And that is how it was. Yah made 2 great lights, the larger light to rule the day, the smaller light to rule the night, and the stars. put them in the dome of the sky to give light to the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, to divide the light from the darkness. He saw that it was good. So there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day. So we understand and we see here sun, moon, stars, all these great lights, lesser lights, they were created on the fourth day. However, we see on day one, when the Father first opened his mouth, he said, let there be light. But we see, when we don't get down to verse number 14, when he's talking about day 4, that it talks about these lights that he put in the dome of the sky. But wait a minute. Did he make light on day 1? Or did he make light on day 4? Well, here's the reality. When he said initially, let there be light, that word light is not the same as sunlight, moonlight, starlight. Let there be or. Let there be or. Aleph Vav Resh. Watch this. The word or indicates, watch y'all, not light like you see shining on me like that. Okay? That's another word for light in Hebrew. Or we more associate this word with glory. The word Shekinah. Shekinah. We refer to that. That is not sunlight. That is not moonlight. That is not starlight. That is not flashlight. Okay? That is not light coming from these lamps and bulbs in here. The word or indicates order. Watch this. It is order. When he looks at the earth, notice what he says. In verse number 1, he says the earth was void and without form. The earth was in chaos. That was what is described there. If you look at in Hebrew, it's the word. It's described as chaos, disorder, disarray, out of order, unarranged properly, confusion, disarray. So the Father says, let there be light. Don't like disorder, don't like chaos, don't like things all out of whack. His intention says, let there be order. Let there be order established. And then you begin to see how things begin to come together. You begin to separate the light from the darkness, begin to separate the waters from the land. All these different things begin to happen because what the Father established when he looked upon the earth and saw darkness, which was a void, which was a adjective to describe the absence of something. He looked at the chaos and said, no longer be chaos, let there be order. Let order be established. Let order spring forth. Let order come forth. Let order be. So when he says that we are like that, keeps the same way. Isaiah chapter 60. Look at Isaiah 60. As he's speaking to his people. Arise, shine, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, for your light has come. For the glory, there it is, Shekinah, for the glory of the Most High has risen over you. For although darkness covers the earth and thick darkness the peoples, on you the Most High will rise over you, will be seen his glory, his Shekinah, his Shekinah. Nations will go toward your light, kings toward your shining splendor. Raise your eyes and look around. They are all assembling and coming to you. Your sons are coming from afar off, your daughters being carried on their nurses' lips. Then you will see and be radiant. Your heart will thrive and swell with delight. For the riches of the seas will be brought to you. The wealth of nations will come to you. So he says to his people, through the prophet Isaiah, although darkness covers the people, darkness covers the earth, and gross darkness the people, the light, the glorious light Do you understand that the gospel is referred to by Shaul by the Apostle Paul as the glorious light of the gospel? Says the minds of those who believe not are blinded. That's the glorious gospel, light of the glorious gospel should shine into them. Light. Let's look at this other thing. If we are his, we are salt, obedient to his will, eaters of his will, communicators, demonstrations of his will, salt. But then we are also light, which means we are commissioned as he is to bring order to chaos. We establish order. It means we don't ever follow the trends of the world system. We don't ever follow what the world system does. We don't ever follow what darkness does and then try to copy it and make it a thing of light. No, we don't have to copy anything that darkness does. We don't have to be relevant to darkness. That's not the goal. The goal is not relevance to darkness. Why? The Father separated light and darkness. He intended for there to always be a separation. There's no agreement between light and darkness. There can never be an agreement between light and darkness ever again. The Father separated light from darkness, and he intended for it to always remain that way. So we don't copy darkness. We are light. We do not follow an order that has been established by the world system. We do not follow an order that has been established by things outside of his instructions. We establish order. That's what it means to be light. You are the light of the world. The scripture says, Paul says, that the Father commanded his light to shine in the darkness. We are put here and left to be those because we sought, obey, embrace, demonstrate his rule and his authority, submitted to his rule and to his authority, in obedience to his will and to his commands, which empowers us and gives us the ability to establish order. Light or is order. Watch this. We must bring order. We must remove chaos. If you've been following us for some time, you know at some point in time I did a teaching on the lampstand, which is what is more referred to as menorah. When you read the instructions about how the menorah was built, how it was constructed, how it was made, and what the purpose of the menorah was, you see that he says that the purpose of the menorah was to give light to the house. That's the purpose for the menorah being established and built. And the way it was built was it was these two things that had been joined together into one, and then connected by that one main shaft, the shamashim. Okay? The funny thing is the word shamashim is also the Hebrew word for deacon. Okay? Where there was a reality that here it was joined together by this shamashim, this shamash, it's in the middle, this one particular thing. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. So us connected to him together. And then there is the oil that is flowing through the lamp, his spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, flowing through the lamp that makes us all unified as one. The real true symbol of the body is the menorah. Not fish. Fish came from somewhere else. It is the menorah. Okay? And so with that lampstand, why do you think in the book of Revelation, those churches, as was referred to, those Messianic communities that were referred to, were demonstrated, shown as lampstands. They were shown as the Lord. 7 lights, 7 lamps, right? Because that was the purpose of the lampstand. That was the purpose of the Lord, to give light to produce light. Light that was being produced by the flow of the oil, Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit. Okay? So, in the same similitude of the menorah, the purpose of the existence of the menorah was to provide light. The light on the menorah was not a flickering light. The light on the menorah was a constant light. It constantly provided light in the temple, in the sanctuary, so that the priest may carry out his assignment. So, like that menorah, we produce light. Look at this. Look at Psalm 119. I want you to see this connection. Psalm 119. And remember, okay, Aleph, Vav, Resh are strong, fashion, or I'll put it like this. Let's read this first. Psalm 119, verse number 130. Let's read that first, and then we'll look at another passage and we'll kind of bring this together. Psalm 119, verse 130, or verse 129. Your instruction is a wonder. That is why I follow it. Your words are a doorway that lets in light, giving understanding to the thoughtless. The King James Bible says the entrance of your word giveth light, giveth light. The menorah was not a flickering light. It was a constant light. The entrance of your word giveth light and brings understanding to the simple. That's how it's quoted in the King James. Giveth, ETH on the end of a word in your King James Bible indicates a continuation of something. It is a constant giving. Okay? He makes the reference there in Matthew chapter 5. He says, no one takes the lampstand and puts it under a bushel to hide it. No, they put it in a place where it can give light to the house. So the reason and the purpose for which this lamp is to be able to give light. Now, when you read in Psalm 119, you're going to find, back up to verse number 105. Back up to verse number 105. Let's see. Verse number 105. Your word is a lamp for my foot and light on my path. I have sworn an oath and confirmed it. I will observe your righteous rulings. I will observe your righteous rulings. Now, the word for lamp in the Hebrew is the alphabet is Nun Resh, or light, and Resh it's like a head. I'm going to draw that one too. Okay, it's a head. Okay, but it means light of the head, or the term Resh actually could mean prince. Light of the prince, the lamp. Light of the prince, Torah. Your word is the lamp, is the light of the prince. John chapter 1, this when you get opportunity. John chapter 1, when you read verse 4. John chapter 1. Let's go there real quick. John chapter 1. Yochanan. John chapter 1. Let's read. John chapter 1. John chapter 1. In the beginning, verse 1. In the beginning was the what? Word. Wait a minute. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light. Aleph Vav Resh. Okay? So, lamp, Nun Resh, light of the prince, Light from the prince, light of the prince. Light, Aleph Baf Resh, strength, connected to the prince. Strength that comes from our connection being fastened to the prince. So your word is a lamp, light from the prince, and a light to my path, strength that comes from being connected to the prince. You see it? The man, whatever is making the terminology, is talking about Yeshua. So John chapter 1 says, in the beginning was the word. What is the lamp to the feet, the light to the path? Your word. So in the beginning was the word was with him, the word was him. Okay? Look at verse number 4. Let's just read out. In the beginning was the word was with Yah, the word was Yah. He was with Yah. In the beginning, all things came to be through him, and without him nothing made had being. In him was life, and that life was the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not suppressed it. This was the true light, which gives light to everyone entering the world. In the world came to be through him, yet the world did not know him. Came to his own homeland, yet his own people did not receive him. But to as many as did receive him, to those who put their trust in his person and power, he gave the right to become the children of the Most High, because of the bloodline, physical impulse, or human intention. Not because of bloodline, physical impulse, or human intention, but because of the Most High. The Word became a human being and lived with us, and we saw his Shekinah, the Shekinah, the glory of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. So Yeshua, when he came speaking truth. He came bringing enlightenment. Y'all, this false New Age religious teaching, this secular humanism teaching does not give true enlightenment. The only thing that comes out of New Age secular teaching, the only thing that comes out of it is further blindness and further delusion and further illusion. What we must do is understand our responsibility. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 through 16 is where I am. He is telling us that we are the salt. We are those who embrace, who eat of, who are a part of a forever established covenant. That we obey and we walk according to that, which is the pleasure of our King as representatives and as citizens of the kingdom. So we are salt and we are light of the world. It means that we bring and it means that we follow the same pattern that he followed in Genesis when he saw that there was darkness, there was disarray, there was disorder. When he saw that, he said, let there be light, let order be established. So not only do we become the standard of his holiness, salt and righteousness, purification, salt being purification. Not only are we the representatives of his holiness, the representatives of his righteousness, the bearers of his truth. We also are his ambassadors and his agents. Matter of fact, the book of James refers to the Father as the Father of lights. And just like Yeshua was the light, that just like the Father was the light in the beginning that brought order to the chaos, that is the commission that we have. How is it that order is brought? How is that order is established and rule over chaos? become bearers of it. We become examples of it. Then we become those agents that say we cannot embrace another order because the Father's already established an order. It's an order for everything. When we say that, I used to hear people say all the time, that everything's supposed to be done decently and in order. Yes, his order. What he has established, what he has put, and what he has laid out according to his instruction, according to what he has given to us. We have to embrace, we have to be soft, we have to take the melach. We have to eat of his truth. We have to be salted with his truth as living sacrifices. Every offering was to be salted. The baby, to keep it purified, was to be salted at its birth so that it can be protected. It is a protective measure. What do we say? One thing I always tell people about is obedience to Torah is coupled into my obedience to Torah is the protective, is the protection from something else. I always told the children when they were coming up, the whole purpose for rules is to keep you protected. That's the only purpose. Not to control you. The purpose for rule, the purpose for law is to protect me, to keep me from my own folly, to give me guidance, to give me direction. Gosh, it's not about restriction. It's not about burden. None of his commands are grievous. I always say it's important for me to understand it's not I have to, it's I get to. The embrace of the reality that he loved me enough to protect me from that which I don't perceive because I'm not smart enough on my own. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the willpower in my own to be able to do it. So he gives me his instruction and he gives me his strength through Ruach HaKodesh, my helper, that reminds me of his will, that empowers me, gives me his grace to empower me to do his will. What more does he need to do? Okay. So, John chapter 8. And then we'll go to 1 John, and then I think we'll wrap this business up. John chapter 8. Go to John chapter 8, then we'll go to 1 John. Okay? Right now we're going to go just to regular John. John chapter 8, look at verse number 12. Yeshua spoke to them again. I am the light of the world. Watch this. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light which gives life. What is this? Your word is the lamp to my feet, the light of the prince. Your word is the light of my path, the strength connected, the strength that comes from being connected to the prince. Let's turn to 1 John chapter 1, verse number 5. Look at this. 1 John chapter 1. Look at verse 1. The word which gives life. Look at that. He existed from the beginning. The word, capitalized word, which gives life, he existed from the beginning. Sounds like what regular John says, right? In John chapter 1. In the beginning was the word was with him, the word was. So, we have heard him. We have seen him with our eyes. Kind of sounds like what Yochanan says, John says, when he says that we beheld his glory, the only begotten Father, full of grace and truth. We saw him. We heard him. We have contemplated him. We have touched him with our hands. John says. The life appeared, and we have seen it. We are testifying to it and announcing it to you, eternal life. He was with the Father, and he has appeared to us. What we have seen and heard, we are proclaiming to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. Our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Yeshua the Messiah. We are writing these things so that our joy may be complete. Watch this. If we claim not to have seen. I'm sorry. And this is the message. And this is the message which we have heard from him and proclaimed to you. God or Yah is light, and there is no darkness in him, none. Everything that has to do with light has to do with reality, that it is all connected to, or it is all a reality of, really a revelation of the reality of who the Prince is, of who he is. So that connection and relationship that we have with the Father, he is light. And because he is light, he is the Father of lights. And it's the same thing, the same principle that happens, wish I had that thing. It's the same principle that happens with that menorah. That there is a light, the main light that is on the menorah, that is on that main stem, that is called a Shema, that is called what lights. Basically, that light lights the other lights on the menorah. You start with that light, and then you light the other lights from that light. I'm saying that we his offspring, those who come from him, what the Father does with chaos is eliminated and establishes order. So that's why there is no factions and division among us, should be. Because we have a commission, we have a responsibility to be salt, to be representatives, to be those who bear the representation of what it means to be in covenant with him. I didn't even tell you that the word daughter means a covenant of the house. The understanding of the word daughter in the Hebrew indicates that she joins the families. The Father established an order. He established it from the very beginning, the way he wanted things to be. So when we as a body, when we as people who represent him, try to adopt a standard that comes from another order, that is creating disorder, disarray, chaos. But if we stay in alignment with the order that he's already established, no, I can't embrace the two men that have children. I can't embrace that as family. That's not his definition. That's outside of his order. And the reason why the Father established the order, and the reason why he gave us his instruction, is to protect us. And so it is the best way is for things to be done within the parameters of the order that he has established. It is not to control us, it is to protect us. Salt is a protective measure. Salt protects the child from bacteria, from germs. Salt preserves meat. Salt keeps it from what? From rotting. Right? Before they had refrigeration and all that kind of stuff like that, they used salt as a purpose. Salt still has that capability. So they would have understood fully what he means when he said you use salt. It wasn't random. It wasn't out of alignment. You're salt for the earth.